Hi, welcome to the show. There were definitely no technical problems earlier. My name is Chris. We're going to talk about the comics that came out this week. We're going to talk about the comic news this week. There was some amazing comics this week. Yeah, I'm just starting fresh, and you get a double salute, and you definitely didn't have to deal with any weird technical issues. That's not a thing that happened. Why would you even bring that up? That is to say, all right. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Andy. Lovely to see everybody. There we go. See, we'll just throw in some nice little things here. Tell you what, before I get into the news of the week, which is where I like to start the show, just some housekeeping business. Very excited about this. Jim Mafood and I do a show called Trash Movie Bonanza here, where we look at garbage movies. They're not always garbage, to be fair, but weird or cult movies and stuff like that. And we are going to have that show also shared soon on Schraub Home Video. I'm sure at least some of you out there have to know Scud the Disposable Assassin by Rob Schraub, being comic book fans. I've made an episode about it on Comic Tropes. Been a fan of Rob Schraub since the 90s. It's been very fun to watch his career as he moves into TV and film. And he's got his own website where he's constantly streaming just sort of like web shows that he helps produce. And Schraub Home Video. And pretty soon, our show Trash Movie Bonanza will be shared on that. They do new shows on Sundays. Otherwise, it's just always sort of streaming repeats of stuff. So, pretty cool. Big fan. So it was really nice to have that added somewhere. Hopefully we get some new viewers. And there's a possibility that Rob Schraub himself might just be appearing on our show very soon to talk about bad movies. So pretty excited about that. Let's see. Was there any other housekeeping business? Just, I guess, that I put out a new Comic Tropes. Finally, I know I took a long time there. I'm happy with it. It's just a sort of a fun story time episode that gives you an entry point into understanding what pedigree comic collections are. Sort of a unique collection within the world of comics. Not tons of those. So I thought that would just be something fun to talk about. And it let me talk about another newer channel out there that talks about comics. And I just feel like the host of that channel, I'm talking about Karen's Pages. Great name for a title, by the way, for comics fans. I felt like Karen made a really fascinating documentary of sorts, about an hour-long documentary on a specific pedigree comic collection. So hopefully I've been able to send some attention to another creator. Always want to try to use whatever tiny measure of stardom, just beautiful stardom that I have here to help others out. So anyway, with all that said, I guess that will take care of housekeeping business, and we should get on with talking about comic book news. Look at that. There's just a beautiful, beautiful thumbnail. Gave myself some extra fingers since that's something AI seems to like to do. Got the Instagram robot just casually contemplating my absolute horror at the scenario. And once I finally added all this, I was like, boy, the scream I made, completely unintentional, really reminded me of the new Wolverine popcorn bucket. So I just threw that in. Oh, and as long as I've got that up and, talking about comic book movies, I have to say, I was kind of pleasantly surprised today with that trailer for Venom 3. I did not expect to like any of the Venom movies. Look, things like the Madam Web and Morbius movies, I think have been pretty bad. The first Venom is pretty darn entertaining. Some of that is probably just the talent involved. It is weird to have a Venom movie where he's not connected in any way to Spider-Man. Venom 2, I didn't like as much, even though it had some good things going for it. So I thought I was done with Venom, but the trailer for 3 kind of looked fun to me. I was surprised. We'll see. We'll see. We'll get into talking about things like the AI. But first, I wanted to talk about something light and funny. So there is a comic book store out in Iowa called Mayhem Comics and Games. They've got multiple stores, I guess. Well, they put this little notice up at one of their stores and on their social media. Apparently, they've had some issues with some stinky customers. And I am sure that if any of you have been to a comic book convention, you know how bad that can truly be. God, bad smells are gross. They just make me nauseous. It's my least favorite part of going to a Comic-Con is that I do know that at some point I'm going to smell something bad. There's kind of no way around it. So I just thought that this was funny that they actually felt the need to put up this thing saying like, you know, if somebody complains about your smell, we may have to ask you to leave. So that was a little amusing. If you can collect comics, you can collect deodorant. Well, there you go. There you go. Oh, are you offended? I don't know. It's all acting, just to be clear. I've been very depressed lately, but I've talked too much about that. You guys don't need to think about the bad stuff. Let's talk about the fun stuff. It's fun to talk about comics. Makes me feel good. So I just thought I'd share that because I got a kick out of the fact that they had to actually think about. Nobody puts something like this up quickly. You know, you don't want to risk offending your own customers, but you got to figure that enough people complained that it was a real issue. Hygiene is definitely not that hard. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like way too sensitive, but I definitely don't want to be a stinky guy. You know, some countries are really big into perfumes, and some countries absolutely hate perfumes. But I just feel like the least you can do is just some basic hygiene. Have some clean teeth and clean skin. Let's see. I assume that sign is directed at one specific customer. I kind of feel like it probably is, but let's not target that poor individual. Maybe reading this sign is just enough. Because my understanding is they put this at one of their stores, but not both. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that. Let's move on to this. Artists being concerned about Meta updating its AI policy. And I've got quite a few things to say in terms of opinions, but we'll see if we can also get like an informed discussion going with the chat room here. Wide variety of artists and readers here that might have some opinions or thoughts that I wasn't clever enough to talk about. We'll talk in a little bit about this statement that J. Scott Campbell made the other day. And then there's some actual examples of AI tools that are like legit proud of what they can create. And, you know, they do stupid things like this, like Iron Man just having an arc reactor on his back. And that's an example of like how even if you create an image in AI and it looks kind of good, you basically have very little in terms of tools to then just make one edit. And I kind of am glad for that because it keeps people that are not artists from being able to really take full advantage of these tools. But let's talk about why I'm talking about this. So first of all, Meta, what does that entail? Meta is the company behind Facebook, Instagram, Threads. I would say Instagram might be the most relevant concern for a lot of comic book artists, but we'll get into this. They've got a new AI privacy policy. And some of it says in part that information shared on Meta's products and services, including things like posts or photos and their captions, are going to be used to train their AI models. And that begins June 26th. That's frustrating enough to think that like the images of your art or your family can be used to train AI models. That's frustrating enough because but what's more frustrating is that it's not asking for your consent. It's just telling you this is how it's going to be. And second, unless you live in Europe, because there are different laws over there, it's very hard to opt out of this. All you can do is take multiple steps to put in a complaint and ask them not to, but it isn't just an opt-out button, and you have to wait for a response. And I've seen some people, you have to write a paragraph basically of why you want to be excluded from this. And I've seen some people find out that it resulted in their account getting shut down or something, or it's absolutely ridiculous. On top of that, this week in particular, I saw a lot of comic book artists going to a newer app called Cara, C-A-R-A. And the whole deal there is it's based on explicitly saying they won't allow AI models to train on the art. And in fact, they're taking it a step further. If you upload an image, they put glaze over it automatically. If you don't know what glaze is, glaze basically adjusts some of the pixels in your digital image. Not in a way that's really perceptible to the human eye, but essentially it's almost in the back end. It messes with AI training. Like, for instance, if an AI image or AI training was looking at an image you drew of a cat, it might think that it's a truck, and it screws up its training because it just doesn't know. It's glaze is a nice thing, but usually it's an extra step. Well, if you upload to Cara, it does that automatically, from what I understand. That is a nice addition. But I've also seen concerns over overreach by social media platforms in terms of, rights to your own images and your own posts and stuff like that. It applies to written words too. What if I uploaded, an essay reviewing a movie? It would be trained on that. So Cara is nice, but I've definitely seen a bunch of artists try to flock to a new program, and a lot of them die early on because it could be buggy. It might just lack a bunch of features. It might not be able to handle the bandwidth of a bunch of new users. And no matter what, it's not going to have the same user base. So the amount of responses you get might be just a whisper compared to a conversation. I saw it happen with Hive. What am I on? I'm on Blue Sky, and I like it, but it's very quiet. It's very quiet. And I do worry about Cara because I think it's run by three guys. That's going to be hard for it to scale up to a massive user base. But what happens to your art on Instagram? Nobody wants to give away the rights to their art or their style, all that hard work. So over here, J. Scott Campbell posted about it, and he had a different take than I do. I thought I'd at least share it. J. Scott Campbell's obviously a very big, successful artist. And I'll just read some of it, but he says that, he is going over to Cara, but he's also saying he's not abandoning Instagram, and he doesn't think other people should abandon it that quickly. While I certainly understand and respect the principled actions and weighty decisions others in my field are making to exit Instagram over Meta's AI image scraping policies, I would strongly encourage those out there making a living from their artwork, whether it's from using Instagram as a hiring portfolio or, like me, as a way to advertise my art business, do not make a big decision like this emotionally. I understand the slow creep of AI is scary, and we're all inclined to fight back. But I'm not sure hiding our artwork away from the world on small, upstart, untested platforms exclusively is a wise choice. And he talks about how it's worked for him. I thought that was interesting because, of course, J. Scott Campbell has a style that could be stolen. And he's saying, let's not do a knee-jerk reaction. But I think it is a legit concern. I don't know that it's necessarily that emotional. As far as our options go, you know, if you could upload something to Instagram, what I'd recommend is to look into understanding what tools like Glaze or Nightshade are, because I'm not an expert on that yet. I'm trying to read up and understand it better. But my understanding is that those are tools that can protect your art from being um, essentially looked at and studied by AI models. It would ruin it for it. Tricky. Um, Even if you wanted to delete your art, if you have a good following on any social media platform, you may still want to use that as a tool to advertise stuff. It's a concern. It's a real concern. Glaze is rough to use regularly. My understanding is part of what makes Kara so popular this past week is that it automatically applies glaze to the artwork you upload. I've been using Glaze. I don't have the processing power for Nightshade. Oh, I didn't even realize that that was a potential issue. That's interesting. See, I'm educating myself at the same time. This is why I can't do like a comic tropes episode about this yet. I don't feel like I have the institutional knowledge to talk about how to protect your artwork very well. But it is worth bringing up as a news item and get a conversation going. AI would never steal my artwork. Who knows? Who knows? I'm also concerned the regulations will be too slow to adapt to the always evolving AI world. I think that's a sincere concern, because when is the government going to sort of step in and regulate something like this? First of all, a lot of our policymakers are older, and a lot of them aren't artists. So they're not going to easily understand this. If I'm an artist to a degree, and I'm having trouble understanding the full ramifications of this and how to properly protect my art, how can I expect, a 60 or 70-year-old senator to understand it? And second, let's be upfront. Yes, we've got a democracy, but I think that it's naive to think that, special interests, in other words, companies with money that can influence policy, aren't people that have a bigger voice than an individual voter. And when is this going to cost a company enough money that it crosses the table of policymakers? Because I definitely think that a lot of AI has been immorally trained, in the sense that they've been trained on people's writing and artwork without consent. So they're sort of stealing what makes that person's art unique. So it's a concern. I honestly don't think AI is that great. I feel like I can tell when it's AI. I think it can sometimes make an interesting image. I think it's terrible at comic book making, like panel to panel storytelling. Things are inconsistent. It just doesn't have a good flow. I've yet to see, I've seen a couple things that are comic strips and comic books, and I think that they read terribly. Not just the words. I'm saying, like, panel to panel, it just doesn't follow organically. There's no consistency. I just don't think it looks good. I don't. So I think that, okay, for now, there are still problems with it looking good, but we'll see. I don't know if there's any other big areas of this topic that I'm overlooking. Well, and let me be clear. There is some AI I'm okay with. And there's always been elements of AI in certain programs, right? There are things that can just speed up some of them. I'm okay with AI speeding up busy work, non-creative things. If you could create code that could make it, more efficient to manage your finances, book a flight, write a string of code or something like that, or just, I don't know, analyze medical records, like just to like interpret things. If they're like boring, mundane things that nobody likes to do that AI can do for us and do well, that sounds like a win-win. The biggest problem I have is when it starts encroaching on the creative arts, because that's humanity, and that's what makes us special. And it'll never be creative. It might casually look good. There's AI in video games, right? Like the enemies you fight are programmed with a type of AI. So there's types of AI I'm fine with. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. If Kara is good at protecting people's art and can grow that user base, that sounds like a win-win. Even if they could become big enough that it becomes any sort of a financial challenge to a place like Instagram, then Instagram's going to take notice and go, oh, we still want to be competitive. We want to like advertise and have sponsored things. We want to keep people on our platform. If people are abandoning us over this AI stuff, there's probably not that much skin in the game, and they'll probably do something similar, like, oh, okay, upload your images here and we'll protect it with glaze or nightshade. So it's even if we can just sort of like pinch them a little bit, that might be enough. That might be enough. I think that's a great way of putting it. AI makes images, but humans make art. They're never going to have a point of view or come up with an original idea. They're just not. Regulations, nice to see you, Bronze Age nerd. Regulations requiring AI to show its work would be great. Yeah, that's, wow, what a simple but great thing. Like, if you had to challenge, first of all, something should be declared an AI image. And second, if you needed to, if you suspected that it was taking from you or an artist that and you could say like, show me exactly how you generated this image, that would be a great regulation. Think of how simple that like request seems to be. I like that. I like that a lot. That sounds smart. That Bronze Age nerd, nice channel. He seems like a pretty smart guy. Christopher, maybe I'll get to see you in a couple weeks at the Washington SummerCon. I'm going to move on to some more news. But this is an important one, and it's just going to keep having little bits of news every once in a while, because this is technology that's changing fast, and we're learning to adapt fast. We'll see. The Hellboy is 30 years old. Wow. Doesn't feel that old to me, but I guess time speeds up as you get older. So just a couple little things. To mark Hellboy's 30th, Dark Horse is releasing some related merchandise, and I thought that was kind of cute and interesting. One thing is they've come up with its own Loteria, or Loteria? Loteria? Is that how you'd pronounce it? That's a traditional Mexican game of chance, essentially. This is the company that's making it, and they're going to release 36 themed cards. So that'll have artwork by guys like Mignola. 10 tablas, that's sort of like the game board that you place the cards and tokens and stuff on, and 60 tokens, and that's $20. So if you've ever played that before, Loteria, whatever. I don't know. That, hey, thematically, that fits a character like Hellboy. That's not a bad idea. And they've also got this thing up here, the Hand of Glory candle, and that appeared in the story Hellboy Box Full of Evil. Now that's $60. That's a paraffin wax actual candle. Boy, does that thing look creepy to me. And that is based on Mike Mignola art, but it's kind of funny. I just aged you like at the end of Saving Private Ryan. Very nice. It's your version of bingo. I like it. It looks fun. Loteria. Loteria. I'm trying to learn here, folks. Thank you. No, notice the number of fingers is correct on the candle. Yes, because it's based on Mike Mignola artwork, not AI hands. Isn't that beautiful? Moving on, DCU, their upcoming movie universe. Some of those rumors seem to have prompted a reprint of this comic. Let me talk about that. So, DC is going to reprint this book, which Quality Comics originally owned. I think it was as late as the 80s that DC bought the Quality Comics characters. Might have been a little earlier, but yeah, but anyway, originally by Quality Comics. Police Comics #1, like most comics in the Golden Age, it was an anthology. They're going to reprint that August 7th, $6.99. This is a bigger than typical comic. They used to have more pages, and they're remastering the colors. Don't know who's doing that. That would be interesting to know, but we'll see. So August 7th, pretty soon. This had the debuts of a bunch of comic book characters that are still used. Plastic Man would definitely be the most notable here, but Human Bomb and Phantom Lady have appeared. I don't think the Mouthpiece has appeared ever. Firebrand, I think, has been reimagined at least once. Holy moly. Thanks for the relevant info there, Rob. I had no idea they owned it that long. That's really interesting. Okay. Yeah, I knew Quality Comics was one of those companies that went out of business at the end of the Golden Age, but I didn't realize that DC bought it all up back then. So there have been rumors since February that the DCU might have a Plastic Man movie, live action movie, helmed by Darren Aronofsky, a guy who definitely likes comics. He's made comics related stuff before. At one point, he was going to do Batman Year One, I believe. That fell apart, but yeah. I sort of know what you mean. That it's like a guy that just explodes, but he doesn't die when he explodes. Moving on, last thing is just that this character was created by the late Jack Cole, who I believe, if I'm remembering right, sadly, commits suicide when he was really not that old. But anyway, this came out back in August 1941, and it would be coming out this August, so sort of an anniversary. I think Plastic Man could be a lot of fun. I think Plastic Man, out of all the stretchy characters, is the best one. I mean, in terms of characterization and good stories, Mr. Fantastic is really up there. But in terms of the versatility of his powers, the fun, and the look, I think that Plastic Man is just great. They picked up publishing Black Hawk and GI Combat without missing a month. Wow. I mean, I knew that they did all picked it up, but I never looked into the fine details of when they bought it. That's interesting. Yeah. I've heard a lot of great stuff about the Kyle Baker version. I don't think I've read that one, though, now that I think of it. Oh, of course. You could save a ton on the CG if you hired somebody like Jim Carrey. Luffy is the best stretchy character? I still think I like Plastic Man more. I mean, Plastic Man is interesting. He was a crook. He was a criminal. And then he became a hero. E.L. O'Brien. Just an stretchy morally. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Could be fun. Apparently, there's only going to be one single printing for the upcoming Marvel and DC omnibuses, as in they have no plans to continue to keep this in print for the future. This is definitely a one-time thing is the goal. So these two omnibuses were originally coming out in I think they were originally coming out as early as June, but no matter what, they've been delayed to September 24th. $150 each. And Bleeding Cool said that at the MCM convention the other week, they had a retailer conference there, a Diamond hosted retailer conference, and it was explained that there are no plans to do additional printings. So it just means if you're interested in reading this stuff, you might want to place that pre-order. You know, you could do that at your comic shop, Amazon, wherever. But yeah, these probably won't be reprinted, and that does make sense. That has sort of been the Marvel DC attitude for a long while. You know, in the 90s, they did a bunch of stuff together. That's nice. But they haven't worked together in a long time, with the one exception of the very small print run reprinting the JLA Avengers. That was just sort of to help George Perez and family. Anyway, they were originally coming out in August. Okay, so only a one week delay. That, I mean, 1 month delay. That's not. I don't think I'm going to personally be getting these, because I read, well, you know what? I'm not going to get the Amalgam one because I read all of them back then and I don't need that again. But now that I think of it, maybe I do want the DC versus Marvel Omnibus, because it has been a while since I've read some of these stories. A couple of them I never read just because it was like not necessarily the top creators I'd have chosen to put on some of the books, but it would be fun to like take another look at like Batman Hulk, or, you know, Punisher Batman or something. Yeah, that might be fun. I'll give that some thought. Well, I mean, I know off the top of my head, there's also Flatman from the Great Lakes Avengers. Marvel doesn't have a lot of stretchy characters. DC, of course, also has Elongated Man as a pretty famous one. But yeah, just looks like one printing. I don't have my original comics from there though, so that's why I might get the DC versus Marvel Omnibus as I think that through. But the Amalgam one, which is probably in some ways the more fun one, in some ways, Amalgam was fun, but I just don't need to reread it per se. I would too. But there's also a bunch of things that I would like to see, and I see DC collaborate with other publishers. I see IDW and Dark Horse collaborate with other publishers. You know, we get things like Ninja Turtles, Batman, and stuff. But how fun would it be for Marvel to collaborate with, say, IDW right now? Like, I would absolutely love to see a Ninja Turtles Daredevil story. I think that that's something that we should have, and it's kind of crazy that we don't yet. That is the perfect team up there. Yeah, in a way, that's a good point. I mean, Kamala Khan has, to a degree, she does stretch. She can embiggen parts or all of herself. Venom has some stretchy powers. He doesn't. Yeah, you know what? He could probably do just about anything you could write Plastic Man to do. You probably could get away with that with Venom. It's not quite the way he's always presented, but he has done some weird stretchy stuff now that I think of it. So yeah, there are some stretchy adjacent characters in Marvel. We'll put it that way. Oh my goodness. I don't think there's anyone demanding Solson to reprint their work. Solson, folks, was not a great publisher, although it definitely gave plenty of people their first break. First Jim Lee, Samurai Santa. I was a little excited to see some of this as a fan of some 2000 AD books, these two in particular. This is also from that MCM convention at the retailer conference. Rebellion / 2000 AD announced a bunch of different stuff. I'm just going to talk about a couple of them, but you can look it up if you're curious about more. They did hint again, as they have before, that there's going to be some sort of a secret crossover between the comic 2000 AD and the Judge Dredd magazine in September, but nobody knows exactly what that is. They're also going to do reprints of Rogue Trooper to coincide with the upcoming animated movie. I think that that's good timing. Probably a lot of people don't really know Rogue Trooper, but it's some great sci-fi comics. There have been some really beautiful artwork published through Rogue Trooper. Rogue Troopers had some really cool stories. Yeah, so I'm excited. They're going to reprint those in chronological order. I like that. Yep. Dave Gibbons has worked on it. Staz Johnson, maybe more recently. I'm trying to remember. There was a really lovely painted era, and it's eluding me right now. The British artist who did the painted stuff. But I remember reading that in Heavy Metal magazine. It was really good. I like it. And then also kind of relevant, especially to what's popular right now, they're going to be reprinting Battle Action Force. That was the UK version of G.I. Joe. So those are planned for around Christmas time, December. But that could be fun. Judge Dredd and Deadpool. They wouldn't get along very well, so that could be interesting. Will Simpson, that does sound right, I think. It's hard. I can't quite remember, but that does sound right. I'd have to look. Yeah, I mean, come on. Ninja Turtles, obviously a little bit of a parody of Daredevil, so they've got, the foot versus the hand, but how fun would it be to have those two ninja organizations as the enemies? Shredder and, whoever they want to put at the top of the hand. There've been lots of different leaders. But I think that would be a blast to have the hand and the foot together. Someday. Yes, that's the best idea I've heard yet for a crossover. Judge Dredd, Judge Judy. Sir, shut up! That's my perfect impression of a Judge Judy episode. A popular manhwa artist is coming to New York Comic Con. And to the best of my knowledge, as big as webtoons over in Korea are, I don't think New York Comic Con has had any of those artists there yet. Not unlike any big titles. Grimjack is a bit of a blind spot. I'm aware of it, but I haven't read it. So I thank you for the super chat. I wish I had something to say in response, but I don't know. Let me get into this. So the artist goes by the name Angie, not angry, Angie. That's the Korean artist of the currently popular boys love webtoon Semantic Error. I know it's not something that everybody watching this show reads, but boys love is very popular in Korea and Japan. It's just a very accepted romantic genre. And it tends to be more romantic love, not like, sex stuff. It's just crushes and stuff. So it's a little bit, it can cross over to people that don't necessarily feel that they themselves are represented, but they still might enjoy the story of a romance. Anyway, yeah, he's going to be the guest. Angie is coming to New York Comic Con. Semantic Error was originally a novel, a light novel, and after the manhwa, I should really call it, it was also adapted into a very popular live action TV show over there. Yeah, I'm glad that at least one person is familiar. Yeah, that's true. It is Pride Month, so it's a legit popular genre, and yeah, I respect it for that. Wait, I like this one, Bro Love. Yeah, that's what it is. Angie has also drawn some other webtoon stuff that's been very popular. I haven't read this. It's not my area of expertise. I'm trying to learn more. Mr. Kim and the Suspicious Wife and Master Bake's Case Notes. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Angie's going to be at the U.S. publisher Ize Press, and they are going to be printing this book in English later this year. No official date yet, but yeah. Nagisa Furuya. Don't know that one. Dude, that's actually pretty clever. You're probably being like, I mean, you came up with that on the spot, but a softball team, boys love manga called First Base is actually pretty damn good. That's amazing. Is it? I don't know what that means, folks. I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something. I'm sorry. I don't know what that refers to. I haven't read it. As long as I'm talking, though, about the vertical scrolling web comics, trust me, Japan knows how popular that is because it is humongous in Korea, and lots of other Southeast Asian countries enjoy the vertically scrolling comics. I mean, Webtoon is huge here in America too at this point. Oh, Master. Okay. I see now that as I said it, it probably was way more easy to understand than me just like reading it. Got it. Got it. Thank you, folks. Anyway, Shueisha has launched Jump Toon this week. If you don't know, Shueisha is the publisher behind Shonen Jump. So, all the popular stuff like, One Piece, these days, My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, all of them. Shonen Jump is a huge magazine. Lots of popular manga that's come through there. But they've launched a vertical scrolling webcomics app called Jump Toon. It's only in Japanese at this point, so yeah, I don't know how many of you read that. That's okay. Some of the comics that they're going to have, it's not just publishing exactly what's in the print edition Shonen Jump. So first of all, they're going to have a fully colored webtoon version of Haikyuu. That was a popular volleyball manga, but it was in black and white originally. They've got a new vertical manga by Eneko Yugasaki, the creator of The Rising of the Shield Hero. And they're licensing a very popular Korean webtoon called Dr. Elise. So, yeah. Yeah, yep. It's time. I think it's it's time. It's just a Jump Toon to the left. I am sure that this has the ability to get popular because Shueisha has access to some of the top talent in Japan. So I will not be surprised if Jump Toon takes off pretty darn quickly. I mean, they're doing a colored webtoon version of Haikyuu. If that proves super popular, it really wouldn't be that hard, would it, to say, what if they put One Piece and formatted that for like vertical scrolling? I don't know how easy they'd all be. I don't know that everything that was created for print is going to translate very well to being adapted to vertical scrolling. I can, for instance, think of one of my favorite manga that I've read recently, but isn't a recent book, was Slam Dunk. Slam Dunk is a basketball manga, but there's lots this was created for the printed page, so it wouldn't read the same if you had all of this scrolling down, because there are like splash pages, and sometimes if I look enough, like a double splash page, that's not going to have the same impact if you just format that to a panel that you're scrolling vertically that's the same as like I don't know, like the same length as this panel with just a face. It needs to be thought of. The art needs to fit the format. I think that there are plenty of good manga that could translate okay to the vertical scrolling, but not all of them are going to be perfect. That is really interesting to me to know. I did not know that. Thank you, Mango Do, for explaining. Slam Dunk is famous for never having digital editions. Takehiko Inoue is very anti-digital. Probably a bit of a factor of just like, when he came up in like, the late 90s into the early 2000s. But yeah. I'm more interested in comics created for vertical format from the start. Agreed. Because if you do that from the start, you can still create interesting splash pages and play with the format. You just have to have that in mind from the beginning. But yeah, I do like vertical like comics. I've definitely played around a lot with Webtoon and Tapas and similar things. It's nice. Got a lot of manga news tonight, folks. This one is relevant to anybody on the East Coast. It's a rare opportunity. Attack on Titan. Obviously an incredibly popular manga and an incredibly popular anime. Well, they also created a musical, and it's coming to New York. The manga by Hajime Isayama was first adapted as a stage musical in Tokyo and Osaka in January of 2023. So it's been about a year and a half, and it's been a huge success over there. Huge. Let's see. I don't look at many webcomics. Do scrolling webcomics scroll one panel at a time or one page at a time or some hybrid of these? It isn't like a page. It's just you continuously scroll, Andy. It's all like a super long page. And I think that usually it's programmed to just like load only like an image or two at a time, like, so it's not like loading absolutely everything at once or anything, but you just keep scrolling. You just keep scrolling, and it's up to the artist how they do the breaks, and you could have two panels and stuff, but a lot of times you'll just have a panel and it goes to like another panel, but some of them can be longer or shorter and stuff. It's you should play around with it. It's an interesting way of using height to the advantage in some panels. Yeah. I think I have heard that term, Mike. By the way, always good to see you, buddy. Oh, this is a lot better than Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark in terms of success and lack of accidents, but it is similar in terms of having some very complex wire work that allows a bunch of the cast members to go across the sort of stage. So that's an interesting part. Moving on with more bits of news on this, it's coming to America and New York for the first time, and those are going to be performances from October 11th through the 13th, okay? So, not many days, very limited engagement, cast of 35, big cast for this, and they're going to perform in Japanese. This is the actual, like, traveling cast from Japan. It's not like a new adaptation or anything. They're going to be performing in Japanese and singing in Japanese, but there are going to be super titles above the stage. Very easy to read, like, subtitles, because it's below. Super titles are when you put it above. That's all. A unique way of doing it. You have to be a fan and be willing to read, but I think that, it should be nice. So it's going to have 4 showings across those 3 days. It's at the City Center, and the prices start at a pretty reasonable $45 a seat. If you've ever gone to see a Broadway show in New York, you know that that's a really, really fair price. But it also probably means that it'll sell out. It will sell out. I think that they are assuming that it's a limited audience. Personally, I suspect it's possible it might completely sell out. I really think that that's popular, considering how popular Attack on Titan is and how many people are in the greater New York metro area. So, don't know if it's for you, but if you're a big fan and you're in New York or nearby, I thought I'd put this on your radar. It sounds like if it was close to me, I would go see this. I would want that like experience just to be able to talk about on this show and stuff, and it might be really awesome. That kind of thing feels like a streamlined version of the infinite scrolling strips that Scott McCloud was promoting in the early 2000s. I don't know if I'll ever do this as like a full episode or maybe like some sort of a mini episode or something, but there was an interesting period in time where Scott McCloud got into a brief argument with the guys from, what's that longtime webcomic that started its own video game conventions, PAX. They definitely had some different views on how to do web comics. It was kind of a funny little feud, but it was kind of a quick feud too. It wasn't like it really went anywhere. Yes, Penny Arcade. PAX. Yes, Penny Arcade. Thank you. Did you do a show on Miyazaki? No, haven't done anything on Miyazaki. No. I did stuff on people like Osamu Tezuka. I should have said Tezuka. In fact, I used that as a little bit of a segue. Tezuka had a famous comic called Dororo, and that's getting a remake. So, Dororo was a dark fantasy. It had supernatural elements to it. It followed a Ronin, Hyakimaru, and an orphan, Dororo, and they wandered Japan in the Sengoku period, which is basically the early 1500s. A lot earlier than a lot of the stories that you'll see in like the Edo period. Anyway, the manga ran from 67 to 69. And now there's this version, Search and Destroy. So it's also a manga by Atsushi Kaneko, and that's a remake set in a cyberpunk future. Kaneko is an interesting mangaka because it does not all look like typical manga. I look at this stuff and I'm like, I see some Western influences and some Western indie influences at that. Like I look at this and I'm like, okay, so first of all, it's coming out through Fantagraphics, and I see something like that, like these dark blacks and remind me of somebody maybe more like Charles Burns than say Osamu Tezuka. So anyway, it's going to be published in English in 3 volumes by Fantagraphics, 224 pages each. First one comes out in July, $14.95. $14.95 for 224 pages seems very reasonable. Atsushi Kaneko is dope. Nice. Nice. Yeah, another adaptation. You were typing Charles Burns? I'm glad that I wasn't just saying that name and it didn't like land anywhere. That's really nice. Thank you. Love the anime that came out a few years ago. Never saw that. Oh man. If you've gone down that path and you've opened that rabbit hole, there are so many fantastic manga set in the Edo period. And even now that I think of it, some good American comics, because Usagi Yojimbo is definitely set in a, a fictionalized version of that still teaches you some real history. But I mean, Blade of the Immortal, what else is great? Vagabond, just awesome. Just so many good things. So many. I think this is my last manga piece of news, but a manga publisher announced that they're going to start adapting classic literature, and not just Japanese or American, like all sorts of classic literature. Manga publisher Kadokawa has announced that they will have a masterpiece line, Masterpiece Comics, and they're going to adapt classic literature into manga format. The first release is going to be an adaptation of F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. And I guess I misspelled Scott. So kudos to me. Oh yeah. Sorry. People are talking about some amazing things here, but Berserk is a favorite of mine for some reason. It just really connects with me. Lone Wolf and Cub is so fantastic. So many good one-off stories with a good twist to it. And it's had many good live action adaptations too. Hey, Steve, thank you. Read any good comics manga lately? Great comic tropes video. Very interesting. Other than that, give this vid a like. Sure. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about some of the comics that came out this week that were really cool. What else did I have to say? Just that I guess, so this is set for release March 2025, but I couldn't see anything about which creators or artists, writers, etc. Well, there's not going to be a writer. There's going to just be an artist, I guess. But yeah, this is definitely reminiscent of Classics Illustrated, definitely, but in manga format. And you know what? I've seen some good manga adaptations of literature before, I would point you to Junji Ito's Frankenstein, which isn't any sort of a reboot or reimagining. It's just a flat out adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And it's really well done. It's really cool. Some of the other books that they've announced that they'll be adapting: The Silent Meow, The Legends of Tono, The Alchemist, and Lipstick on an After Image. I know that The Silent Meow was, I believe, well, it's Western. Paul Gallico was the writer, and I don't remember if that was America or England or what. Anyway. The Great Gatsby versus Judge Dredd. That's the crossover we've all been looking for. Hola, muy bien. ¿Y tú? Oh, I didn't read that one. Thanks for the heads up. Could work. This could work. I think to a degree. It just depends on what artist they have cover it. But I thought that was an interesting idea. The Great Gatsby. It's required reading at just about every public school here in America. That's one of the books that we all have to read. And I was like trying to imagine it in manga terms. And I was like, yeah, the big wild parties for 1920s. I could sort of imagine that part of it fitting well for manga. Some of the car driving at the end. Yeah, it could be interesting. Could be interesting. Let me jump to another country. Russia is using comics to basically indoctrinate its youth regarding how they portray themselves in their war against the Ukraine. Comics, Frank Miller has long argued, are always a type of propaganda. It's trying to get you behind, one or two people's vision. And in a way that is propaganda, even if it's something simple like a superhero book. But these are images from it. And to me, I can't be sure. That kind of looks like AI imagery to me. I don't know for sure, but it looks like that a little bit to me. We'll see. This comes from a BBC report that I read this week. And just using comics as propaganda. I'll just give you the high points. If you want to read the full article, the BBC breaks this down a lot more than I'm going to get into. But this past April, the Russian Defense and Education Ministries started distributing tens of thousands of comic books that praise their invasion of the Ukraine. They're giving those to schools across Russia and parts of Ukraine that are Russia controlled right now. Basically, they're saying things like they went in because neo-Nazis were planning to kill all the people in the Ukraine, that like Ukraine was going to kill its own people, and that they're invading to protect lives as compared to annexing more land. Yeah. Among the protagonists is Colonel General Azatbek Omorbekov, the commanding officer. This is real, by the way. This isn't fictional. The commanding officer of the unit responsible for the killing of civilians in the Ukrainian town of Bucha in 2022. The comic book describes that general as a real man and claims that his troops have shown humanity during the first months of the war in Ukraine. I don't need to depress us all by getting too deep into the weeds on the politics of this, but this is an ugly, ugly scenario, what's going on. It's something that's very hard for America to be involved in beyond, enacting sanctions, because we don't want to escalate the war. But yeah, it's crazy. Like they're saying that the goal is to put these comic books into the hands of every single child that goes to school. That is their goal, the stated goal. We'll see if they get there. So, oh really? Okay, I didn't know that. Sorry. So, yeah, I've talked about it a little before in some episodes. World War II comics as propaganda. Yeah. I mean, from Russia's perspective, I almost get it. It's just a little depressing. Like, there's this one guy, Oleg Ray, that they hired to write a bunch of this stuff. He mostly, besides this, just writes children's books. But yeah, there's I always wanted to visit Russia. I would really love to see St. Petersburg and Moscow and a bunch of other places. Russian people have some amazing history. I like a lot of Russian food. I think that some of their older architecture is fascinating. But the government, I just find very dangerous, and I would not feel safe visiting for any reason right now. So, huge shift. I'm going to pivot into something way more happy. We're going to talk about the Ultramega Kaiju comic returning. Thank goodness. Huge fan of James Herron, so I was pretty excited to come across this news this week. Yeah, James Herron's Ultramega is going to return from its hiatus. It's been on for a few months. Issue 5 is set for September 18th. Cool. And it's a big issue. I'll get to that. So if you haven't read it, I'll just sort of catch you a little bit up to speed. The main character is a guy named Noah, and he's taking on the mantle of Ultramega from his late father. Ultramega used to be 3 guys. Pivot. Thank you. Yeah, so Ultramega has to defend against kaiju threats like the Kaiju Queen. There's a new threat from the stars that's coming. And it just looks so exciting and action-packed. If you guys like somebody like Daniel Warren Johnson, Kerry Randolph, American artists with some sort of like, manga influences, I think James Herron fits some of that mold. Hell yeah. It's really cool and unique. Yeah, I could see those guys too. There's some angular stuff in there that reminds me of that. And so yeah, issue 5 is going to be 72 pages for $7.99. Makes sense to me. 72 pages sounds pretty darn good. I think that like we were figuring out the other week that the distillery books cost $8.99 for 48 pages. So that and like when you calculate it, you're like, okay, $9 for basically 2 comics that normally go for $4 to $5. I go that sort of makes sense. But 72 pages for $8, I think these days it's a good price. It's a good price. Yep, it is. It might be a little intimidating for a new reader. I get that. But it's the story itself is very easy to jump into. I think it's a good book. I wanted to put it on people's radar. I was amazed at this. I'm a big G.I. Joe fan. You guys, if you watch this show, you know that. I get all sorts of weird little G.I. Joe stuff. I've got a bunch of figures. I don't have to reach very far to have a classified figure at hand. And I read all the comics. I like G.I. Joe a lot. I don't know. I came up at the right time. At the same time, the original G.I. Joe comic from the 80s and 90s was very popular at one point. Very popular. Mail order wise, it outsold Spider-Man and X-Men for many years. But I really thought G.I. Joe had its day, that it wasn't as relevant anymore because it came up in an era of nearly jingoistic patriotism, when stuff like Rambo was incredibly popular. And I think that G.I. Joe is way more nuanced than that, but I didn't think that it was easy to necessarily jump into. It feels very American. It feels like on a surface level if you don't know it. I worry. But ever since Skybound has sort of rebooted G.I. Joe and putting it into the Energon universe, as well as continuing this series by Larry Hama, that's not a reboot, that's just a continuation. G.I. Joe has been doing very, very well. So there is, I guess, an audience for this. So to such a degree that I was astounded. It hit its Kickstarter goal in 6 minutes, and the goal was to reprint the entire Marvel run. I'm getting ahead of myself. So Skybound currently has up a Kickstarter. They're printing 4 compendiums, 4 big volumes, and that reprints the entire G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero run, written by Larry Hama, minus like 2 or 3 issues, just to be clear. It includes all 155 issues of the main series. The I don't know how many special missions issues there were in retrospect, 15, 25, something like that. Their annuals, and the G.I. Joe versus Transformers crossover of 4 issues. It was fully funded within 6 minutes. I would not have expected that. I was lucky. I happened to be awake and I knew that it was about to start. So I jumped on and I got the version of it that I wanted signed by Larry Hama. That sold out right away. Right away. 28 issues. Thank you, Rob. Glad to have an expert in here. If you don't know, Rob Irizarry is one of the hosts of, a G.I. Joe podcast. Let's see. How many issues will each be? I got to do the math, Andy. Let's see. So 155 plus 28 plus 7. Okay, so ballpark, we're like at 200 times 22. If my math is right, somewhere around 400 pages each. I don't know if I'm doing that math right. I'm doing it on the fly in my head. Anyway, a lot, a lot. They're hardcover, I think. Yeah, I think each issue or each of the compendiums has about 50 issues times 20 pages. So maybe a little over 400 pages. There are 22 days to go. They've already unlocked 11 stretch goals. Just putting that out. If you've never read it before, folks, this is G.I. Joe from the beginning. Issue 1 through 155. They're at something like 308 or 309 now. These issues, though, they introduced pretty much all the main characters, not just people that were toys. Larry Hama created a lot of original characters that were important. The Hard Master, Billy, Cobra Commander's son. Interesting characters like that. Quinn, the hunter. Dr. Venom. It's going to have classic arcs like the War for Cobra Island. That was amazing, where Cobra split into 2 forces. There was the tragic conflict in the Middle East in a fictional area called Trucial Abysmia, where like just tons of G.I. Joes died, which was kind of relevant since we were at the time like actually going over there. G.I. Joe the comic always had actual stakes. The mysteries of the Arishikage clan, that's Storm Shadow's clan, and all the people that filter through there, including people like Zartan and stuff like that. It's great. Oh yeah, White Clown was a fantastic character. There's a great storyline basically where 4 Joes are on an undercover mission in sort of like basically a fictional part of Russia, and they fail and they go to the Gulag. And so a few of the Joes resign and do sort of their own Black Ops mission to save their friends and their comrades. It's a great storyline. It's really cool. Anyway, I could talk about this a lot. I happen to like it a lot. I think it's also a pretty good value. At this point, they've unlocked all sorts of stretch goals so that there's going to be like gilded pages, a bookmark, foil on like some of the color on the outside, all sorts of great stuff. Let's see. I won Hooded Cobra Commander 788's Duke sketch. I heard that Brian put up a bunch of his G.I. Joe art. Congratulations. That's so nice. That's so nice. It wasn't quite a tuxedo. It was sort of a clown suit, but it was black and white, and he did have a pointy white hat. Yeah. Yes. Yep. Scarlet #1 coming out this week, and that's going to be the Energon universe's sort of introduction of all their ninja mythology. Doesn't Cobra have 6 factions? During the war for Cobra Island, it was mainly Serpentor and Cobra Commander, although the Cobra Commander was actually just a guy pretending to be Cobra Commander. And you've had Destro have his own faction sometimes. A lot of times, Zartan and his Dreadnoks are sort of their own entity. Cobra Law only exists in the new Energon universe or the old cartoon. Does not exist in these comics. But yeah, so there's a few. All right, let me move on because I could talk about G.I. Joe all day. This is a quick one that I just think is so cool, but I really like Zoe Thorogood's comics. I only discovered them within the last year. I think she's very talented, like really good storyteller. Anyway, she's doing something with GalaxyCon. They've got some exclusive covers. They're a fan engagement company. They do exclusives, basically. And they announced the Hot Comic Summer. That will mean that they have their own variant covers for Star Wars, Ahsoka, Hack Slash Back to School trade paperback, and Mad Cave's Gatchaman. And I just like mentioning this one. This is available on their site. Folks, that's Zoe herself as the character. She made this comic, the Hack Slash Back to School, and that's her cosplaying as Cassie Hack. I don't know of anything quite like that, where, you know, the artist has cosplayed as the character in a photo on the in the comic. I don't know anything about that, so I think that's really, really cool. I'm sure Larry and the others are getting a piece of this. It's a standard practice to get royalties off of reprints of things you worked on. I'm sure, and that makes me very happy. Yeah, crossed over $1 million that this one did. Like over fully funded within 6 minutes, past $1 million within 2 days. Oh, just amazing. It's already at like $1.6 million. Oh, that's, yeah, I've seen Wendy Pini dressed as Red Sonja, but was she ever on the cover of a Red Sonja comic that she also worked on? I've seen plenty of comic book creators cosplay, but I don't know if anything quite like this. That's all. But that's a good pull. She always played a good Red Sonja. Yeah, I've seen a bunch of pictures of that. The lead has been cast in the Criminal adaptation. Charlie Hunnam, if I'm pronouncing his name right. Maybe it's Hunnam. I don't know. Anyway, he's playing Leo in the first arc of Criminal. That's going to be an adaptation of the Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips comic for Amazon Prime. Both Brubaker and Phillips are executive producers on it. Brubaker's in the writer's room. So yeah, he's playing Leo Patterson. If you haven't read, and you should, Criminal is fantastic. Great crime comic. Really, really believable characters, neo-noir stories. Anyway, Leo is called by a lot of people a coward, and that's because he's this heist planner and a thief, but he tries to make his plans without any guns or violence. That doesn't always go to plan, but that's his goal. And he's very smart, though. He's always thinking several moves ahead, and it's really cool. Oh, that's right. He is going to be at Washington Summer Con. Too bad that we don't already have, well, I guess we could have him sign a Criminal comic in a way. That'd be interesting. I don't know who they'll cast as people like Teague and Tracy, and yeah, there's tons of important characters. Look at these jokes. Uncle Leo. Everybody loves Seinfeld jokes these days, right? Is he a smooth criminal? He's kind of not. Frank Thorne, who drew Red Sonja, cosplayed as a wizard with Wendy as Red Sonja. That's really cool. That's really cool. I have Red Sonja #1 with art by Frank Thorne. Underrated Bronze Age artist, that's for sure. Frank Thorne is underrated. He's cool. He's very cool. I like Charlie Hunnam a lot. I think he's been in some really good stuff. He's been in some things that I absolutely love, and I wouldn't say that I can give all the thanks to him. Like Pacific Rim, that first movie, I just love that movie. I guess I'm letting my kaiju fandom show, but he's been in a couple movies by that director. I'm so bad at names. I really like this director, Guillermo del Toro. He's been in a couple Guillermo del Toro movies. I watched the first few seasons of Sons of Anarchy, then I just sort of got burned out on it. He was good on that. He was on that one sitcom. What was that one sitcom that came out at the same time, basically as Freaks and Geeks? It was about like people in college, and he was the roommate of the main character. I can't remember anymore. It only lasted a season, though. His best work was the early seasons of Sons of Anarchy. Like I say, I think I've watched about 3 seasons, and then I just sort of got burned out. Oh, Pan's Labyrinth is very, very good. Yeah, that and what was his one that he got the Oscar for? The Shape of Water, I want to say. Those are fantastic. Fantastic. Undeclared. Thank you, Eric. I kept thinking like underclassmen, and I was like, no, they're in college. But yeah. Anyway, I hope he's good. I think he's got the right look. He could play this. He's getting to be right age, right everything. Could be very good. Could be very good. Almost done with the news, and then I've got some comics I want to talk about. But Ninja Turtles. We know it's the 40th anniversary. One thing I thought was cool was IDW has told us that this upcoming big 40th anniversary one-shot, what it's going to have in it for stories, and it crosses all the Ninja Turtles continuities, just about. I guess there's nothing like The Next Mutation, that one season live action TV show. But yeah, so this comes out July 10th. Stories across all sorts of continuities. 3 stories back in the original Mirage comic book era. And one of the stories I know is going to be by Kevin Eastman. We've got 2 stories in the IDW comic book era. That makes sense. One set in the Saturday Morning Adventures. One in the Archie comics era. Yes, Ninja Turtles Adventures. One in the Image Comics era. People forget about that one a lot of times. Volume 3. Fantastic. Very dark interpretation of the Ninja Turtles, but really interesting. One based on the 2003 animated series. And guess what? That one has actual people that worked on the show. Carrie Randolph and Emilio. I'm so bad at names. Colorist. Hold on. I'll just look at it because I'm going to feel bad if I don't remember his last name right now. Sorry, looking this up. Emilio Lopez. Sorry, Emilio. I just blanked. Yeah, but they worked on the show, and they're both comic book creators, but they worked on the show. So that's kind of cool to see them do something there. There's going to be a story set in the 2012 animated series universe. That was one of my favorite interpretations of Ninja Turtles. The Nickelodeon CG one. I just thought that was so good. One story set in the Rise of the TMNT animated series universe. All right. And one new Kevin Eastman story. The original co-creator, but that's awesome. That's just so cool. I love it. I love that, like, we see each of these eras represented. I wouldn't off the top of my head have guessed at things like the Archie, Image, or no, I could expect Rise of the TMNT, and I could expect the 2003 because of Carrie Randolph, but the 2012. So like the 2012 Image and Archie eras, I wasn't expecting to see represented. So that's, oh man, they really are almost all excellent. And the cool thing about having so many different interpretations is I think it opens people up to future new interpretations, and it allows the ones that really succeed to remix ideas from previous versions. I like that. No, you're right. So, like, yeah, there's nothing from like either of the live action movies or even the 2004 or 8 or something like live action movie, but yeah. So, I loved the new movie. I mean, I guess you didn't, but I loved the Mutant Mayhem one. I would have loved to have seen something in that, but this is really cool. This is really cool. Mirage Volume. What was Mirage Volume 4? I remember that the second one was very brief and it was like, colored, and then it went to the Image with Volume 3, but I don't remember Mirage Volume 4 very well. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, you're right. That has sort of been delayed, hasn't it? Well, I guess Last Ronin was kind of slow to come out too, so yeah. I don't know. I thought the 2003 was pretty popular. It's just that, we are 21 years past when it started is all. But I always thought that was pretty popular for its time. You were at the premiere and still didn't see it. I liked it. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was cool. I thought it was a great take on Ninja Turtles. Last thing I want to talk about, and I haven't necessarily been the biggest fan of Ghost Machine in general, although I do like Redcoat and I respect a lot of the creators that are on it. I just haven't been personally captivated by it all. I respect it, but I really respect this. This Ghost Machine is basically a new imprint, creator fueled, where they all sort of share the equity in what they've created, and I like that. But they've announced that they're going to pay 1 full year's tuition and supplies for a third-year student at Joe Kubert School, where you can learn to be a cartoonist, for the 2024-2025 school year. So it's a scholarship. They've launched a scholarship in partnership with the Joe Kubert School. I love it when people give back, and I think that that's just a really cool thing to do. I would, give props to any publisher that wanted to do something like this, and it doesn't have to be the Joe Kubert School either. There are great cartooning programs that say like the Savannah College of Art and Design or the Rhode Island School of Design. Like there's lots of great places for cartoonists to learn. But if a company like even like huge like Marvel wanted to like give a little back, such a small amount, I'm surprised that I've never seen something like this before. It feels like a no-brainer. Yeah, absolutely. High five to Ghost Machine on this. Savannah is a great school. So yeah, some of their talent, just to be clear, Brad Anderson and Rob Lay, they're both alumni. And apparently, a bunch of the Ghost Machine writers and artists will be guest lecturers for the future school year. That said, a lot of professionals have been guest lecturers at all of these schools that I'm mentioning. But it's a nice idea to have a little partnership there. Hey, I think it's also just smart on a business level. If you have a little bit of a partnership here, maybe you get first pick of some of like the rising stars at the school, right? And it makes sense in that regard that they're going to do it for like a third-year student. You'd be like, well, why not a first-year student or something? Not all of them are going to get to the third year. You want to probably support the ones that are most likely to get into the industry. That's all. I think it's lovely. I have not picked up Ghost Machine's coffee. I have not, but that's cool. Right. Good point. Yes, there are organizations like that. Like Disney has a relationship with California Art School, University. I forget what it is, but yeah. So, I just wanted to share that. I thought that was cool. Let's see. Let me turn on my camera here so that I can show you some of the comics that I picked up this week. Not just to show you, of course, but to review them. What? Yeah. More like mini reviews, recommendations and such, if that makes sense. Is that gonna... Oh, hold on. I'm bumping my camera around. Got to focus it properly. All right. Let me adjust some things here. New comics, best part of the show. Thank you. I think it's the most relevant, but I like talking about the news too because it gives me room to riff on stuff. Let's see. Adding a camera. Yeah, there. That's centered up pretty well. Hey, this was the one that I had on top of the pile. So, oh no, you know what? I'll get to that. I have not, but I'll open it in a little bit. I'll open it tonight. Yeah, weird toy that a friend gave me. We'll do that. All right. So, I'm a fan of Rick Remender and Brian Posehn. I think that they make interesting stuff. I think Brian Posehn is hilarious. I'm a mark for Mr. Show and anyone just about that's connected to that. Grommets refers to a part of skateboards, and both Rick and Brian grew up not being like, traditional athletes or anything. They were little outsiders by all accounts, but they were both into skate culture. Now, in real life, Rick and Brian became friends once they were adults and working professionals. But this comic that they write envisions them as kids, but if they got to be friends. Absolutely, Rick can skateboard. Rick's first comic was a skateboarding comic, Blackheart Billy, through AIT Planet Lair. Yes, so a lot of people will forget. I was just talking up Brian Posehn, and he's done some good comics too. He was really funny on his Deadpool run, for instance. Rick has had a really interesting career, folks. Yes, he's written a lot of great comics. I've talked up things like his X-Force run, or how I'm enjoying, I don't know, all sorts of his Image comics these days. But he was a professional animator that worked on movies like Iron Giant and Titan AE. He's a writer that's worked in video games. He wrote the first Dead Space video game, with Isaac, and that's a huge thing. Rick has an interesting history, and yes, he was deep into skater culture. But yeah, so this is fun to see him come back to something that I know he's passionate about. The artist here I hadn't come across before, Brett Parson. You know what it reminds me of a bit is classic Mad Magazine. And I say that in a really positive light. I respect the hell out of the artists that have come through Mad Magazine. And it is kind of funny. It's about Rick going to a new school and really being the outsider, trying to make friends with the skaters that he sees, and they all kind of ditch him. But here's what I mean. Doesn't that look sort of like a Mad Magazine page with everybody running out of school at the end of the day and people are just doing a million different things? I don't know. It reminds me of that. It's funny. It's legit funny. And then Brian shows up and he's a little more of like the stoner slacker type than Rick's all-American boy. I'm saying too much because I don't know exactly what I'm going to say about this, but I like this. It's got all sorts of weird characters that feel real. Brian's grandpa gives these guys a ride in his truck, and of course he's smoking because it's the 80s and people just smoked in public. He didn't worry about stuff like that. I don't know. It's charming as heck. It's really, really relatable too, because I'm sure even if you're not the new kid in school, that all of us have had days where even the first day of school, where you just feel like maybe a bit of an outsider, You just have trouble feeling like you're fitting in. And those sort of memories are so substantial for all of us. I mean, hormones probably account for how memorable some of that is. But I think no matter how old you get, you can relate to some of this stuff set in high school and stuff. You can always sort of relate. And it's a slice of life story about two people connecting and bonding over a shared interest. Now, Brian's character brags a lot about how good he is at skating, and he gets pushed into showing, like, hey, you talk a big game, why don't you show us? And so he has no choice but to. There's a lot of hilarious jokes in this, but he definitely gets messed up in this. But you know what? He doesn't care. He's like, did it look cool? And I think that that's tremendously relatable. Now, I was never a very good skater personally. I had a skateboard, but I just couldn't get it. I wanted to. I would have very easily fit into this culture with just the right friends. I would have kept trying. Yeah, bro aided is exactly right. I think that the art style is charming. I think it's funny. I'm trying not to give away the jokes and stuff. It's very character based. It's not like fake, but it's funny. It's really funny, and it's very believable. You know, Southern California in the 80s. This just feels so authentic. I think it's coming from a very personal place for both of them. Can I show the cover again? I want to keep an eye out for it. Yeah, this is it's 1 of 7, so it's essentially a limited series. There might be some variant covers to that. I don't know. Let's see. You could have been the first skateboarding real-life superhero. Oh, if only. That's the dream. Oh, yeah, I could see a little of that, actually. You're right. There is sort of a little bit of Jamie Hewlett in the Brett Parson artwork. So I see that. Crooklyn or the Fablemans. Haven't seen either of those. My great friend is a skater. You have to have a high pain tolerance. I will say, I feel I do. As somebody that's gone through a bunch of strange injuries and even kidney stones, I feel like I can deal with pain pretty well. I do. So I think I could have been a better skater if I just happened to have the right friends that were really into it. I just would have pushed a little harder. I was just never a great skater or skating. When I grew up in Massachusetts, folks. Same time. I'm basically the same age as these guys. They might be like a year older or something. But where I grew up in that era, everybody was expected to play hockey, and I was never good enough to actually play on the team, but you had to at least skate a little. You just had to. Oh, I think you're probably right. I think that Jim has certainly a lot of respect for street art in a sense, and some of the stuff inspired by this. But so look, maybe this isn't for everybody, but what I'm trying to say is, if you did skate, you're going to really relate. If you grew up in the 80s, you're going to really relate. But if you didn't, this is still like very slice of life and very funny. This was one of my favorite books that I read this week, easily. I really, really liked it. There's so much to like about it. Play Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. They remastered it. Loved those games. The soundtrack, the gameplay, loved that stuff. Ball hockey up here. Skates were expensive, but tennis balls were cheap. We played that too. Street hockey, we called it. But yeah, we played a lot of that too. The other book I read this week that I really found myself totally charmed by and impressed is William of Newbury. Now, when it says Michael Avon Oeming here and doesn't have any other names, that's because Mike really did do pretty much this whole book by himself. He wrote it, he drew it, he does the colors. It's very impressive. Yeah, he even did the lettering. He did. So I love that every once in a while when you see an artist get to have almost no filter for their vision. if you're not familiar, and I'm not an expert, William of Newbury was a real person, a cleric, back in like the Renaissance era or something. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm going to have to read up on it by next issue. But in this, Mike envisions William of Newbury as a raccoon in a world of animals. It's an animal world. That just sort of makes them more charming and cute. But this William of Newbury is kind of, I found his personality so charming. He's conflicted in the sense that he's kind of scared of a lot of stuff. He's scared to go into this basement in this scene because he's afraid it might have spiders and that it's damp. You know, like he's not looking forward to it. But there's one thing he's not afraid of. He absolutely just knows how to banish ghosts and demons and stuff. It doesn't scare him at all. So the thing that would scare most of us, not a big deal at all to William. But little things, you know, like he won't stand up for himself very well, and he's scared of like bugs and bad weather and stuff like that. So very charming. His friar or whatever at the church is not happy about how sort of not by the book William is. You know, William just goes and helps random people deal with like their ghostly issues, and he's like, hey, you know, you need to focus a little bit more on the tasks that the church has for you. And so that he sends him like out on a long like quest to just get him out of his hair. And along the way, William gets not abducted, but like confronted by a bunch of street bandits, road bandits. What's kind of charming is William's sort of meekness combined with his expertise on ghosts really starts to win over the leader of the bandits. So there's some great twists and turns, but I would say that what I like most is that he's got a unique personality that I found very believable. He's a meek individual, but he's very, very capable at one thing, and that is, yes, busting makes him feel good. He ain't afraid of no ghosts. It's really cool. It's got some sort of ghost mythology stuff that you might see in Hellboy, and I think that Mike is definitely taking a few cues from Mike Mignola's Hellboy in how he portrays things like, you know, the shadows, the play of light and dark. I think that that's absolutely intentional, especially after just last week, you know, reading his work in something like Project Blue Book, which is a little more realistic. So I really like what he's doing on the art here. I think it looks great. There's a lot, like, look at how much black is spotted on this. But when you're brave like that, that's very pleasing to the eye, that composition. And it really makes it easy to see things like background, middle ground, foreground. So there's a lot of good choices on display here with the storytelling. I think William of Newbury is a great story. I think we're going to get, you know, sort of one big road type adventure. And if it does well, I could definitely see more stories being set in this universe. It feels very fleshed out, and I think some of that, the advantage is it's based on something real at its core. Yeah, and I think that that's absolutely intentional. I like anthropomorphic works too. Sometimes it just makes it easier to kind of believe in the character or place yourself into the main character's shoes. I know that Scott McCloud, in his book Understanding Comics, talks a lot about how a lot of comic strips, early cartoons, you know, I think Tintin might have been one example. He talks about how when a character's face is sort of simplified, it becomes very easy to place yourself onto that character when you're reading a story. I believe that. That always struck me as being very accurate. Dark Horse is doing some good stuff right now. I agree. I totally agree. Yes, that's true. Yep, Mignola did do Rocket Raccoon, and there's a little bit similar, but Mike makes some different choices in how he characterizes him. A fluffier tail, a little bit more of an angle to the face. I don't know. The ears are definitely different. The whiskers not necessarily as big. There's some good choices. You know, I've never read the Mice Templar. I'd like to. I've never read that one. There's some things that you just miss, and yeah. So, I think if you've liked things like Mice Templar or Mouse Guard, this is probably another one. Beasts of Burden, Usagi Yojimbo, you know, like somewhat serious, but a little bit of humor for anthropomorphic or at least animal-based stories. I think that those are all things where you'd like this, but also if you just like Hellboy or supernatural sort of investigators, which is definitely a little bit of a subgenre, I think that William of Newbury might strike your fancy. And I like, look at that cover. Those are some really nice watercolors, aren't they? I think that that's a very pleasing color palette. Because there shouldn't be a huge contrast between a green and a blue, but this ghost skeleton definitely still pops. It's clever. It's very clever. I won't go too plot heavy on talking about this book, but it is a recommendation. This is book 6 of Avengers Twilight. It's the final issue. It takes place in about one generation in the future where the Avengers had been outlawed by the government, and you know there were no more superheroes basically. But this is a story of Captain America deciding that you have to still do the right thing even when it's hard, and even when people don't want you still have to do the right thing. And he slowly assembles the Avengers. It's very nice. You know, some characters like Kamala Khan, older, but still like one of the best superheroes. She's not old. She's like not like Steve Rogers is. Other characters, Thor, pretty much unchanged. But there's also some new characters. Some like there's a new version of Moon Knight essentially. There's a new version of Hawkeye. So it's a really nice mix of some new and old characters. And it's a dark world. Sorry, there's an ad in there. This is a dark world, but it features some characters making some very tough sacrifices, but still doing the right thing and getting a win. And it's nice. It's nice to see that these characters weren't totally beaten down by a bad world, you know. Things have been very rough for them for a long time, but they're very recognizable. I still read this and I recognize Steve Rogers as Steve Rogers. I recognize Luke Cage as Luke Cage. I didn't feel that they were out of character, even though it's sort of a what if or Elseworlds type of story where you can play with that stuff a little bit. I think that this is very much a like a Kingdom Come type of story, but it doesn't follow those same plot beats or anything like that, just in terms of mood and atmosphere. Daniel Acuna was a really nice fit. I mean, some of this artwork is physically dark, not like dark in terms of being too violent or anything like that. There was no red polybag for this. But yeah, good dialogue and characterization meant that the heroes acted heroically. They were conflicted. They were underdogs. As great as these Avengers are, they're underdogs. They're in a world that is like tried to go against them, but it shows that like no matter how bad the world is, and in this, like the U.S. is essentially a fascist state. It's bad. It's really bad. They still do the right thing, and they get a type of a win. There are some losses, but they get a type of a win. It's a really, really good story. I think that this is something that in 10 years we'll be looking back at, and the trades will probably sell consistently well, because you don't need to know the full history of Kamala Khan, Luke Cage, Captain America. You don't. This is a self-contained, great 6-issue story that shows the heroes being heroic, and it's not an easy task. It's not an easy task. They're putting themselves out there. They're potentially ruining personal relationships. They're putting themselves in danger of getting arrested. Certainly, some of them are less experienced and could get hurt. It's really nice. The Elseworlds version of comic tropes. I would have started it 10 years earlier just so that I could be younger. That would be it. No, it did not come with vampire teeth, but I can tell you that if you get, Blood Hunt #1 and you get these teeth, they last forever. I like to put them in once or twice a week and then not clean them. Last month, I went over Ultimate Spider-Man issue 4. And I was a little disappointed and talked a little bit about, fill-in artists. Like, how did I prefer for a monthly serialized book to continue without breaks, delays, or did I prefer to wait and have the original artist? Because part of why I wanted to pick up Ultimate Spider-Man was the original artist, Marco Cicchetto. That said, this is the second issue with fill-in artist Messina, and I liked his art a little bit more in this issue than the last one. Maybe he just needed to loosen up a little, but I thought it was I thought he did a really good job in this. I really do. And as this book goes on, it's moving at I was about to say a slow pace, but you know what I'll call this? I'll call this a deliberate pace. I think Jonathan Hickman, as this story develops, I feel like he's very much going at the pace he wants to tell the story he wants to. Because this is, of course, a very different idea of Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man. This is a Peter Parker in his 30s or so, married to Mary Jane, and has had kids, right? Actually, this issue is barely about him. Instead, this issue follows Harry Osborn. They didn't grow up as friends, but they're starting to become friends as adults. In this, Harry Osborn's father, kind of still like a bully and a jerk and everything, but Norman Osborn and his wife Emily, Harry's parents, were killed in this terrorist attack that's blamed on Tony Stark, but we know that it was actually a bunch of villains. Harry not only inherits Oscorp, but the Kingpin is trying to sort of manipulate him, and he gives Oscorp Stark Enterprises because, of course, Tony Stark is on the run and his parents are dead. But it's interesting. I think that this Harry Osborn so far is very heroic. It will be a tragedy if he becomes a villain. It will actually be very depressing because he's making a lot of empathetic and smart choices so far. He's not making any dumb choices. He and his wife, Gwen Stacy, by the way, get this technology. There's little hints of things that could happen in the future. One of the big employees for Oscorp, this is the ultimate version of Otto Octavius. Will he also become a villain? I don't know. Probably. Probably. We want Dr. Octopus. But anyway, they use Stark technology to build this Green Goblin suit. And this version of Harry is using this technology to fight back against criminals and stuff like that. He is not a villain. He's not crazy. He's not messed up. He doesn't seem to have any big issues. I mean, he's sad about losing his dad, but he's not obsessed with it. And it's interesting seeing him and Peter connect as adults that are both just starting to come into their powers. And I think last week I really started to figure out what this might be about and why at first it wasn't connecting with me, but it's starting to connect more as I understand it a little bit better. I think that this is written for a slightly younger audience than me. I think that a lot of millennials and younger feel that the previous generations to them have prevented them from having the full opportunities that they should have. And I think that that's a bit of what this story is, that, like, you know, Peter Parker, through no fault of his own, had his destiny of becoming Spider-Man stolen from him temporarily, but by a villain called the Maker. Harry Osborn has had his legacy taken from him by some sort of terrorist killing his father. You know, he's had to step into a different role much earlier than he expected. And I just think that that's some of the theme here. I really get that sense as we go on, is just exploring those feelings and how they are trying to be heroes by stepping up and saying, okay, the world didn't give me the opportunity I feel it normally should have. I'm still going to forge my own path and make the most of this. I think that might be what it's about. We'll see. Yes, this Otto Octavius is not a fatso. Thank you, guys. I could be wrong, but I think that I'm getting that. And if so, I give Hickman a lot of props. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think that that's a bit of what this is about, which makes the slow, deliberate becoming of Spider-Man instead of just, here's my tragic origin story. I should have stopped a criminal. He killed my Uncle Ben. I'm going to use my powers for good. Instead, finding out like, oh, I should have had this opportunity. Well, that's going to change my whole life. But, you know, I'm going to fashion a new version of my life from this. It's not necessarily quite as simple as most superhero origins. It's not. We're sort of 5 issues in, and even though he's got his powers and costume, you know, he's not quite Spider-Man yet. He doesn't have his full motivation. I think that they're building on that. That would be so tragic. I think it might alienate too much of us. That's an interesting idea, but that might be more of a what if idea. I think that if you did that big a swing, that becomes beyond tragedy. Like it's just too sad. But I don't know. It's an interesting idea. It is. I won't go too in depth on these last few, but I will say that I'm enjoying some of this stuff in general. Drawing Blood is a story idea by Kevin Eastman, written with David Avallone, art by Ben Bishop, that just riffs on a lot of the stuff that Kevin Eastman has gone through in terms of creating, you know, a franchise comic that was sort of then, you know, taken out of his hands and became something even bigger. And some of the weird people that he's come across in the world of comics and business. But it's definitely all remixed. This isn't an autobiography at all, but the humor is pretty good. Like, you know, for instance, when he's brought in as a consultant to talk to a director of the radically rearranged Ronin Ragdolls, that's kind of clearly Michael Bay, and Michael Bay did produce those live action Ninja Turtles movies. So there's some fun stuff in this. I think you benefit more in terms of how much you can enjoy Drawing Blood with how much you already know about Ninja Turtles history behind the scenes and who Kevin Eastman is. It's an interesting story by itself, but you benefit from that meta level. You kind of need that. I had missed Batman Dark Age book 2 and 3, but I found them this week. I love this. This is an Elseworlds story, for all intents and purposes, of a Bruce Wayne that became Batman in the 60s. It's definitely tied into Superman Space Age in terms of the same world. But basically, in this version, Bruce Wayne is set up and sent to prison by the crooks who are in control of Wayne Enterprises. And the only reason he's able to get out is he's given an opportunity to serve in Vietnam. But what he's put into is this sort of commando unit run by Ra's al Ghul. And we don't get into any sort of Ra's al Ghul ninja type stuff. He's really just this worldly guy that trains Bruce and Maxwell Lord and Oliver Queen, guys that, like, you know, have been set up to, you know, not inherit their companies. And this is where he starts to learn some of his skills in issue 2. Issue 2 is an extended meditation on war and the similarities and differences with chess. Ra's al Ghul speaks in chess metaphors about how you use certain characters to make the other player or the opponent move more than trying to move yourself, and how certain pieces are only there to defend and others are there to attack. It's really interesting. But you get sort of a full story of like his Vietnam era, and then like coming home and essentially becoming Batman. And then issue 3 is really the early days of him as Batman and meeting people like Superman for the first time, dealing with this big threat to Wayne Corps. Wayne Enterprises in this is run by some really bad people, okay? And one thing they do is they have their pharmacists work with doctors to prescribe painkillers unnecessarily to plenty of people, then cut them off, and then supply it to the underworld where they can mark it up like 1,200%. So they're really contributing to the corruption of Gotham. But I thought that idea of making, you know, pharmaceutical stuff the enemy was surprisingly relevant, even though this is set in the early 70s. I was like, oh, what an interesting new way of looking at how, you know, this big company could be doing dark things. And of course, their pharmaceutical division is overseen by Dr. Crane, Scarecrow, but he's not Scarecrow in this. He's just Dr. Crane. And of course, Mike Allred's artwork is just perfect for this era. You know, 60s and 70s, it just fits so damned well. And his characters just, they don't look quite the same as how other people might draw, say, Superman or that. Their poses are a little different. Their eyes and their mouths are a little different, but it's so confident and it's composed so well. There's just a lot to like about this. And again, you basically, each of these issues does give you a chapter, but a full story. It's pretty thick if you haven't been able to tell. It's double size. Oh, and it's framed, by the way, with Bruce Wayne in the modern day, in an old folks' home, starting to deal with early dementia, and he's being prompted to write down his memories to help hold on to what he still has, which is a nice framing device. It doesn't dwell on it a lot, but yes, everybody. I was talking about Dr. Fraser Crane. Who's the Scarecrow's full name? Dr. something Crane. It's not coming to me. Oh, really, Batman? They could have used Dr. Milo. They could have used Dr. Hugo Strange. I think that Dr. Crane fits. I liked both of these issues. I especially liked the book 2, Bruce Wayne being forced to grow up from being like, you know, a rich punk to having to fight in Vietnam. You know, it's a dirty war, and he's behind the scenes, and he trying to hold on to his morals and his humanity is heroic in and of itself. It's quite good. Ichabod, is that it? Ichabod Crane? Is it really? Huh. Jonathan Crane. That's it. That's what it is. Playing with me. Some of the first issue might have been in the late 50s when Bruce was a child. I can't quite remember. but it's good, folks. And the last book I read was Creature from the Black Lagoon Lives, issue 2. And I gotta say, Matt Roberts is really crushing this with some atmospheric, creepy stuff here. There's a lot of science brought into this to try to ground how wild this is. The main character is a reporter, but she nearly drowned at the end of last issue, and she's dealing with very specific effects from what happens when you nearly drown. And she's on the hunt for a serial killer. Meanwhile, one of the people that she's using in Peru to help track him down is a local morgue physician, and he very much believes in this creature and wants to track him down. And she challenges him. She's like, what will you do when you find him? And he's like, well, what will you do when you find this serial killer? And she's like, I'll turn him into the authorities. And you don't believe either of them. They're definitely both planning on trying to kill whatever they're seeing. Here she is having a scene where she starts blacking out. Residual effects from almost drowning earlier. It doesn't always hit you right away. You can have like later blackout periods. And while she's being escorted out of the jungle, look at how cool this surrealistic imagery that Matthew Roberts draws. He got a lot of experience drawing believable environmental scenes on Manifest Destiny. This is fantastic, though. It's really good. And I like that it isn't like a remake or anything of Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's a sequel set in the modern day. It's a really cool interpretation. The creature just has such a great design, too. Like, the design of the creature is like my favorite overall design of the Universal monsters. Manifest Destiny was awesome. Very good book. Tell you what, I'll take a minute or two here. They've already done Dracula, and they're going to do Frankenstein, where like each issue follows the story of like a body part that ends up in Frankenstein's creature. I don't know beyond that. I think that's it that they've announced, but they might do Invisible Man or Wolf Man or something like that. All I can say is it makes Conan really happy. Wait. Oh, look at how happy he is. Look at that. Conan, what is best in life? Okay, if you say so. Stupidest toy I've ever bought, but I love it. I mean, what was this supposed to be? Even if he's holding a sword. I mean, he just looks like he's jerking it. All right, Conan. Yeah, so what is this thing? Here, I'll give I don't 100% know. It says it's a Blade toy, as in Blade the Vampire Hunter, but it's got all these weird plastic pieces. It's not Legos. I don't quite get it. Some of this is soft rubber, but it's got like a little instructions sheet here. So let me see if I can figure out what strange Blade toy I have here. It looks like it's just sort of a character and a diorama that you piece together. What's it called even? Marvel Heroes Figure Factory. Does anyone remember anything like that? I don't remember what the Figure Factory was. Okay, guess you could collect a bunch. Oh, it doesn't look like it's that complex. It's one page of instructions. I'll give it a shot. We'll see if I can do it. I don't know. It's a decent sculpt. I don't know how well it shows up. Maybe if I put it together, it'll make a little more sense. I don't know. Huh. it's just sort of figuring out what part is which, because it's not numbered or labeled like with letters or anything. There's an arm for Blade, but it looks like I've got to put his jacket somehow around it. Tricky. Is he holding it downwards? What a strange set. The Figure Factory. I don't remember that at all, so maybe it didn't last long. If you cannot make it, you must eat 89 Batman gum. No, I'm not doing that again. I did it twice, and it was really horrific and horrible, and hopefully funny, but I am not putting anything like that in my body again. How does this work? It won't seem to connect. Let me see if I can do it without the shirt in the way. Oh yeah, it should push. Okay, I've got a better sense of it now. Hold on. I guess maybe it's meant to be challenging. Like I say, I've never come across anything like this before. What comics did you guys read this week? I'll tell you one that I missed that I did want to read, and I'll pick it up at some point soon, is My Favorite Thing is Monsters Book 2 is out. So I do want to see that. I want to read that. I think Book 1 by Emil Ferris was pretty fantastic, honestly. So we'll see. Can't wait for Book 2. No, I opened 2 very old packs of cards on 2 separate occasions. You might be right. Maybe the feet are on the bottom and the legs are at the top. I don't know. I don't know. It's sincerely not easy at all to get the arm to connect here. It's stunningly difficult, like offensively so. This is definitely not the sort of quality that you get with, say, Lego. Although someone recently told me that Lego's standards may have gone down. I haven't built Lego in a long time, but like I was being told that like some of them are starting to like chip a little at corners or something. I was like, really? I feel like the one thing Lego was always known for, and part of why they charged what they did, was that they had such great overall quality control. So it was disappointing to see. I don't know if this set, None of Your Business, is based on the movie version. I think it's more based on like the comics version. Although, of course, they definitely updated Blade to be way more in line visually with... let me see if I can see it better without my glasses. Those are more for distance, so maybe... Yeah, I can just sort of see some of the fine details a little better here. I don't know. I love it. I can't even get the first piece together. Like just the arm. Just the arm is all I want. Can I and I definitely can do it without the... Yeah. It should just... Yeah, it should work okay without the jacket. You just can't really see the exact angle to line it up. It's almost like a cross, and it will only like go in at one particular angle, and I can't figure it out. So I'm just making some of the best YouTube streaming content possible. Have I tried a blood sacrifice? Is this a puzzle? I think it is sort of a puzzle. Okay, I think I got it in. Yeah, I did. Let's see what happens if I get Blade's other arm. Maybe connect that. Maybe then it'll start to make a little more sense. No. Maybe I don't know. All right. So I finally just put his upper torso together. Now I just need to find somewhere in here his crotch. I need to find the hero's crotch so that I can put this blade all the way together. Let's see. Is that not it? How would be if he's facing the other way, Chris? See, there's body parts for, like, I guess zombies. Well, vampires, right, Chris? There's vampires. But it's hard to figure out whose is whose. Oh, what if it's missing a piece? I didn't even think of that. Could it be missing a piece? The lament configuration, exactly right. Oh, it absolutely is frustrating me. Yeah, I would say that, am I having fun? I'm having a little bit of fun, but it's also frustrating me. There's lots of pieces of ground. Some sort of a skull with, I don't know, wood coming out of it. I've got his legs. Did I... Okay, hold on. That and... Okay, I guess he's just twisting pretty extreme. And those are his... Yeah, never mind. I'm getting it. It's this is unique and also super compelling. So I feel that I'm definitely making the right choice here, building this guy. This is what people tune in for, I think. Should I build the whole thing or just Blade? All right. There's Blade. Apparently, I'm building something called the Blade. What's it called one more time? Someone gave this to me. Figure Factory. Blade Figure Factory. All right. Well, I guess I'm glad I figured that out, but then how do I tell all of these pieces apart for the ground? I have next to no idea. Yeah, it all looks kind of the same to me. I don't know. Maybe I'll just have to do this on my own. Yeah, I don't think that would be very compelling to just assemble the ground. But there's Blade. There's Blade. Here. There. I need to just contrast it against my super white pale skin. My skin, which is that of Casper the Friendly Ghost, nearly translucent, is just white enough for this darker toy to show up better against. All right. That was some compelling TV, right? But this isn't TV. This is streaming. Have you guys seen anything good in terms of comics late? Yeah, I'm just about to wrap up filming, and AI was towards the beginning. But I'll tell you this: as soon as I finish this, I'll go in and edit the description so that there are chapters. I've been doing that for the last few weeks. I don't know if it really helps that much or not, but I figure if somebody wants to come in later, they can, skip whatever they are not too interested in and get to the stuff. Talked a little bit about that. Yep, looks fun. More fun than I expected because I didn't love the second one too much. Scud rhymes with stud. Yes, again, Trash Movie Bonanza will be showing up on Schraub Home Video. Pretty excited about that. And what was the other thing I was going to say about that? Oh, just that Jim and I recorded an episode of... Here, I got some props for it. So I might as well get some use out of them. We recorded an episode. Can you guys guess what the two movies that we reviewed are based on my silly little props? Trash Movie Bonanza definitely operating at a big deficit for what I spend to make it versus what it brings in, but I'm having fun with it. So yeah. Some silly little toys. I don't have tons, but I have a few. Use the props on stream and you can write them off. Well, I mean, they literally were used for an episode, so I guess I could. Great guess. Great guess. Titans Conan is fantastic. I agree. That's not Man Thing. That is Swamp Thing, baby. Howard should never wear pants. I think that you're telling us a little bit too much about what you like, Kevin. Just kidding. Just kidding. Yes, it is The Deer Hunter. It's the movie that got Christopher Walken his Academy Award. Just total trash. Can't wait to talk about it. It's Howard the Duck and Swamp Thing, folks. That's what we review on the next one. How tall is the Swamp Thing, asks Francisco. That's a good question. Give me a sec here. He's very tall, first of all. I don't know. I don't think he's quite a foot tall, but how tall are the Black Series Star Wars figures? Because I only have one, but like I do have that one, and it can show you side by side. Like, is this 5 inches maybe? So this guy's like 8 or 9 inches, something like that. I don't think it's quite 12 inches, but it's pretty tall. It's pretty big. Yes. We're going to talk about Pedigree Comics. We're going to talk about Pedigree Comics this week. I don't have a Barbie to match it up to. Yes, Wes Craven did direct Swamp Thing, and that's some of what we get to talk about. It was kind of fun to do that. So got that coming out pretty soon. And then in the meantime, working on a bunch of Comic Tropes episodes. Got some ideas for the summer. I'd like to do something related to Deadpool, but I'm not sure what kind of angle hasn't really been explored by other comic book YouTubers before. So I got to think about that one a little bit. Gonna talk probably about the Jaws manga that I spent many years looking for. It's the summer. I think that's a good time to talk about the Jaws manga. I know I want to make episodes about certain creators. I want to talk about Mike Zeck sometime soon, just somebody that I really liked. I think I'd like to talk about the Italian comic Diabolic. So yeah, there's a bunch of things that I want to do sometime soon. Does Skydance merging with Paramount affect comics in any way? I don't even know who Skydance is, so I don't think that either of them control any comic stuff. I don't know. So yeah, I think that the fascinating thing about Mike Zeck is just, first of all, great artist. And he just seems to have kind of retired. I mean, you can still get commissions by him and he still goes to conventions. So it's not like he disappeared, but he seems to have kind of retired earlier than I might have expected is all. He hasn't made that many comics, but he's very good. I really like that. Did Skybound merge with Paramount? I never heard about that. Skydance is the studio that produces films for Paramount. Yeah, I thought that Skydance was the name of a little production company, but I don't know anything about how that could affect comics. I don't know. Oh, right. Yeah, they did have Terminator. I don't know where the rights are for that, but you know what? I don't care either. The first 2 Terminator movies are fantastic. 3 has a good ending, but isn't like a movie I like too much. But the 4th, 5th, and 6th Terminator movies, I didn't care for any of those. I just didn't. I wish I did. I like the concept of Terminator. I like the Terminator, the Sarah Chronicles TV show. I've said that before. And there have been some good comics. You know, this is a comic book show. There have been some good Terminator comics, but because I think Terminator RoboCop with Walt Simonson is pretty great. And I think that like some of the very first Terminator books by Now Comics with art by Alex Ross are certainly relevant and interesting. But yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah. I'm glad that other people liked it. Yeah. Don't overthink Terminator. It's not meant to really like be built on the lore too much in a way, you know? The first one's a horror movie. The second one's an action movie. And it's about the characters and what happens with Sarah Connor more than like, oh, the machines and the humans fighting against it and what is Skynet. That's not that important in the first two movies, to be honest. Oh yeah. This is a very controversial episode. Not for talking about Ukraine or talking about boys love manga. None of that stuff's controversial. But my opinions on Terminator are going to rile some people up. If you're talking about the Batman comic used of... no, I wasn't. I don't know about AI. I think it's at least traced. The pictures that look like Batfleck look a lot more like Greg Land's work in Supreme Power. No, I wasn't talking about any specific comic or artist or anything. I was just talking about what Meta is doing in terms of saying anything that you post to Instagram or Facebook, etc., is eligible to be trained on their AI, or their AI is allowed to train it. Yep, it did bring us back to AI stuff. Terminator remains an early example of the dangers of entrusting too much to machines. But anyway, I think that that's a good place to wrap it up. We're going to have fun next week. I better get to work on the next comic tropes. And I'm, some people have been saying online that they were starting to worry about me. And I'm sorry if I've made anybody worry. I'm trying to, it's a weird balance to strike between trying to be upfront about the fact that I suffer from depression to an extent that it can interfere with my life. And it has slowed down the production of comic tropes here and there. And I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to be upfront about why. Not that everybody completely understands, but I don't want to overshare and make people worry. So I'm sorry if I've made people worry. Is it serious? Yeah, it's absolutely serious. But I saw a doctor today. I'm doing everything I can to take care. Well, maybe not everything, but I'm taking care of myself. So sorry if I've overshared. You guys never have to worry about me. Don't worry about it. But I had a great time talking to everybody in the chat room. And thank you if you're watching this while it's archived. I'll be back soon with a lot more. Until then, how about a double salute? You guys, you earned it. You earned it. The double salute, the coveted double salute. You got it. Take care. Keep reading comics. Bye.